It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hello, welcome to Metaphysical Mastery, the podcast to really help you with different topics around raising consciousness and spiritual awakening. So my name is Kate Neligan, and this is a mother-daughter podcast. I'm going to introduce you here to my mom, Peggy Neligan. I am an equine partnered life and career coach, healer, and animal communicator, and Peggy has been a facilitator at the Metaphysical Center of New Jersey for numerous years. So, Mom, go ahead and say hello.
Hi. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Glad to be on here. Lots of good ideas coming.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about some good ideas. We're going to talk about intuition. This is called practicing intuition, and really it is a practice. So we're going to have a couple different questions here that we're going to go through. The first kind of point just to make is that everyone is intuitive. We all have this gift. I know often it's said that women are more intuitive, but truly we all are. And our goal today is really to inspire you to connect with your intuition more and to practice developing it. So, Mom, what would you say is intuition? I know that's such a broad topic, but I know you have some information here about the types of intuition and also brainwaves and consciousness. So go ahead and share some of that with our listeners.
Okay, sure. I think the thing that is so important to understand is that everybody does have it, what Katie said right in the beginning. We are all born with it. It's a birthright. We're given it as humans. It is sometimes called the sixth sense, and it's our ability to perceive beyond our physical senses. We're all very, well aware of our five physical senses, but this is a sixth sense, and it's just the word intuition, and that's all that it is. And one of the things that Katie and I were talking about before is that one of the ways that you can develop or practice this intuition is to put yourself into an altered state. And when I started to figure out what was an altered state, it means anything other than our normal waking state. So as I put together the handout for the show that you can find on the Metaphysical Center website, I described the four main types of brain waves that we had. Is that what you want me to address, Kate, the brain wave?
Yeah, so there's different brain waves, which I'd love you to just mention what they are and talk briefly about them.
Sure. As I mentioned, the one that we are most aware of is the one that we have every day, and that's called the beta level. The alpha level is a little bit slower than that. It works at a vibrational state of about 7 to 14 cycles per second. Then there's the theta, which is deeper, and that's when you really, like when you're falling asleep, you kind of get half in and half out. That's generally the theta level. And then the delta level is the lowest and slowest vibration, and that occurs in deep sleep, deep restful healing type of sleep. So those are the four. So what we're talking about when you want to develop or practice your intuition, you want to be mostly in the alpha level. You can also be at the theta level. That works as well. But when we talk about being in an altered state, it's altered from the beta, and so the next one down is the alpha level.
I love it. And so why are the brainwaves sort of important to, as you said, it's like the altered state that we can get in where we can be more connected to our intuition, correct? That's one of the reasons why.
Absolutely.
And meditation is certainly a place to get into an altered state, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. You really, intuition works through, or that sixth sense works when you are not at the beta level. That's your everyday consciousness, your monkey mind, you're busy, you're running around doing things, and so you aren't necessarily listening to that sixth sense, to your intuition. But when you go into that slightly altered state or the alpha level, that's when you can get in touch with your intuition much more easily. And as you said, meditation is one way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I call it the difference between being and doing, or going from being in the head space to more of the embodied physical space of the whole body, or and the heart space. And so another way is talking about it through brainwaves, and how like that's almost like the scientific way in some ways to really understand the different levels of brainwave. And also clearly we get different information and guidance when we sleep too, which is a different brain, waves that we're at. So I love it. And I think there is a lot of information. There's pages of information on this in that handout that you prepared, which I love. And that will be up on the Metaphysical website in the near future. And so check back and if you don't find it. And so there's also, for the way I always teach intuition too, is that there's different ways we receive guidance, and they're through the clairs, right? So do you want to walk us through the 4 main clairs and, how people receive intuition?
Sure. And that clair, C-L-A-I-R, it just means clear. And it's the way we get that clear guidance. So some people get their guidance by seeing. They may see symbols or images, pictures in their mind. Sometimes it's called imagination, but it's basically your intuition speaking to you in a visual way. And so that's called clairvoyance. When you hear things, if it comes through an auditory sense, it's called clairaudience. And it may be actual words that you hear, or a voice. And Katie, I know you'll talk a little bit about that voice, because that's one way that you get your guidance a lot, through clairaudience. Third way is called claircognizance. And claircognizance is a knowing. What you just know it. You don't know how or why you know it, but you just know it. And that's called claircognizance. And then the 4th main way is called clairsentience. And that's the feeling that you get. Sometimes it's referred to as a gut feeling. And it's, you just have an, inside, something that feels right or wrong. And that's how it comes through in that way, rather than seeing or hearing something. So that's called clairsentience. And those are the 4 main ways. There are others, but those are the 4 main ways that people actually get their information through their intuition.
Yeah, and taste and smell are 2 of the others. But what I love is so funny, because for so long my mom and I have had this conversation that I know I'm very intuitive. You feel like you're not. It's just that we receive things very differently. Like, I am clairaudient. I've heard voices most of my life. The way that I discern the voice is if it's a very loving and kind voice. That's my intuition. Like, the way she talks to me, and I say she because I'm a she and I identify with that, it's a loving, kind voice. It's supportive. It always has my back. It's clear. It's direct. It's kind. It is not confusing. It's not negative or mean. It's not fear-based. Like, people often say, well, how do I know the difference between my voice? The ego can parade as the intuition, so we do need to be careful and mindful. But ultimately, it is also that feeling like, this makes me feel lighter, or this resonates, or this feels like resonance in my body when we hear that voice. And yours is clear cognizance, because you just have a direct knowing. And I'll always say to you, how do you know that? My intuition just shared that with me. And I say shared it with me because I heard it. And you're like, you just know things and you don't know how you know it. And you're always like accurate. It's that whole like mother's always right stuff, which I think is hilarious, but it's really the intuition is always right. And one of the big things is people always say, like, oh, I wish I listened to my intuition. I've never had someone say, oh, I listened to my intuition and I regret it. That has never happened. But It can be hard to follow our intuition at times, because we feel like it makes us do things that we don't always fully understand, or it asks us to do things that we don't always fully understand. I have great stories around that. But, there's bravery in following the intuition. And then there's also that element of, we often will say, oh, I wish I listened to that voice. I didn't. And I've had elements of that too, where I've woken up and gotten guidance to go, reach out to someone, and I didn't. And I'm like, gosh, I wonder what it would have been possible if I actually did call that person that day, right? So there's really, and I found my cats through listening to the voice that said, go to Subway, and there were my kittens. And, there's just so much cool stuff that can happen. So this brings us into our next question. Like, why do we actually want to practice intuition, practice connecting to it?
Well, there are basically the main reason that we want to pay attention to our intuition is that it gives us guidance, and that's what we're all looking for. We all want guidance about. It can be something very simple, mundane. What am I going to do for dinner tonight? Or it can be something I'm thinking about changing my job. I wonder what my intuition has to say about that. And when you have developed your intuition and you're practicing it and you do listen to it, you will get the answers. It may not come through, like a piece of paper that says, move here or go there or do that. Like you heard it clearly, stop at Subway. And they're like, but I don't go to Subway. Why? Stop at Subway. And so she did. And that's where, her cat showed up for her. But we want the guidance for one reason or another. And it's basically our higher self that's what we need to be listening to. So the guidance is the main reason that we develop it.
Yeah, and there is, we could go on and into all these different ways of this, but there is, the way we're talking about intuition today is your higher self. It's the part of you that's connected to all that is, to source, to whatever your word is, universe, God, however you'd like to describe it. But ultimately it is that higher self version of yourself that has more information, awareness, knows your past lives, future lives, knows a lot. And then there's also I also hear guides, which is different form of intuition, which is hearing guides that are with me, hearing the archangels, hearing animals. There's a lot of that level that I tap into too. But the most important, in my opinion, is that intuition inside. We both, my mom and I, went to the University of Santa Monica and got our master's in spiritual psychology, and this is, I think, in my opinion, the biggest gift that they give through that program is getting you in touch with they call it an inner counselor, but it is that intuitive voice inside. And I named mine, which is why my coaching business was first called Conscious Rockstar, because that was the name of my intuition. And I do say, I call it a name, create a name for this higher self version of yourself, because then you really develop a relationship with it and a friendship. And just like any relationship, you do have to practice the cultivation of it for it to grow and for it to get better.
Mm-hmm.
You have to water it, you have to attend to it for it to actually grow. So I also find one of the reasons that we need to practice intuition is because it's practical, right? Like, it has saved me money, time. I've found lost items because I'll be like, where's such and such? And then I'll get I'll either hear it's there, or I'll see a picture because I've really developed more clairvoyance. And I'll see a picture of where it is, and I'll go to there, and thank you. And I always say, thank your intuition, right, is the way you would thank a beloved friend. So, yeah, it is so practical to have intuition as well. And honestly, some of the highest level CEOs, the smartest ones are consulting intuitives for guidance of what is for the highest good for different business practices and agreements and deals and whatnot. And I just think it's super practical. And, that's why I'm so passionate about helping people connect to their intuition. In addition to, it's really the best relationship you can have on the planet, right? It's the most loving, unconditionally loving, connected, present relationship that you can have, because it is that higher version, right? It's higher consciousness. And so that is so powerful.
It's beyond the ego.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, beyond the ego. So that's why we can count on it.
Well, and you can even, I was an atheist for so long, which is still so wild to me. And even if you're not connected to a certain, I wasn't connected to God or anything in particular, and I still was cultivating intuition, right? So I think I love how it's a non-religious thing, and it's also not even really a spiritual thing. It's just this very incredible part of us that we can cultivate and really practice. Okay, how do we receive information? So let's talk about how we can develop it. I think it's really important to know some practices, and you have a bunch, more than I even had known about, to develop and grow the intuition.
Yeah, I think, again, I guess to start everything is to make sure that you're in an altered state, because that's really where you're going to tap into your intuition. So that's the very first thing to always do. And there are a number of different ways that you can get into that altered state. Simple things like breathing. Just watch your breath. Take 3 deep breaths. What that automatically does is it brings you from that beta level of brainwave and awareness into an altered state. So watching your breath, taking 3 deep breaths, there are techniques like counting backwards. There's an excellent program called Silva Mind Development, and they have several different techniques, but counting is certainly one way to do it, counting back from 10 to 1, like you're going down in an elevator, and visualize. Again, you're visualizing, you're using imagination, you're using your intuition, and we don't often think of it that way, but that's what you're doing. So counting is something that you can do, and there are several others that you can use to put yourself in the altered state. And the handout that I am making available for you on the website will list several of those. I don't need to go into more of them right now, I don't think, but definitely getting in an altered state is the first piece to do that. And then the second one, Katie, you mentioned it already, it's practice. You've got to practice using your intuition. It has to be something, if it's important to you, it's like anything. Like if you want to be, a good tennis player, you have to practice. Piano player, you have to practice. And the same thing is using your intuition. You must practice it. So those are the first 2 things that you do. And then I think the third most important thing is get feedback. Because one of the problems that I've personally have, and a lot of people I know, is we don't trust it. We don't trust the intuition. It's like, I don't know where that's coming from. And so what happens is if you get feedback from a situation, you'll know whether it's accurate or whether you're really just making it up. And the more you practice it and the more you get feedback, you realize you're not making it up. It really is coming through to you. So I think that's an important thing. And then there are different ways you can get feedback as well.
Yeah, and I would imagine that your confidence in your intuition has grown as I've said to you, like, oh, my intuition just shared that with me, right? When you give me information that you're getting as direct knowing. Because I think the way yours works is you'll just open your mouth and like say stuff and not even know where it comes from. Right. And you'll be like, oh, I think that's going on with so-and-so. And I'm like, that's exactly what's going on with so-and-so. How did you know that? Right. Like, and you just know. So, and then you get the feedback from me that like, I got the same thing. So there's some confirmation and validation of it. Right.
That's exactly what it is, the feedback. And so one thing that you can do, I know you do this a lot, Kate, is every day, just write down. Just sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and start writing. You may think it's just gibberish coming out, but write it down anyway. Give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it works for you, and just write what comes to you as you're sitting there. Remember, first you're in the altered state, and then you actually go ahead and do some writing. And then put it away. You don't have to do anything with it. But you will be amazed when you look back at it, and you'll say, wow, that's pretty good stuff, and I can't believe it came out of me. And that it is. It's from your intuition. So writing things down will definitely be a way that you can practice or develop your intuition. And another one is just what we were talking about, partner with somebody. Try an exercise, try saying something, sit with another person or do it on the phone and, ask each other what you're thinking of, what's going on, and see how accurate it will be. You're practicing. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's just a practice. But if you say something and a partner that you're working with confirms it, you know that you're on the right track. And that's the important thing is to actually get that feedback. So partnering is a good way also.
Yeah, and this is what we do, like in animal communication and nature communication classes that I've held and taught. It's like getting people to practice, seeing a photo and then writing down what they're getting intuitively from that animal. I think you and I did it at Brian Weiss's class where like you held someone's wallet and you were able to like oracle into that. Certainly oracle cards, like I have a card deck, coming out called Awakening with Equines, and that's another way that you can gather like visual images. You can oracle, which essentially means you go into it as a portal to greater information, right? But ultimately, I know a lot of people developed through meditation. Mine came through what we did at USM, which is self-counseling, that writing, like you write to your intuition, which is what I'm having the women in my certification for equine coaching certification do, is really counsel themselves and facilitate themselves through challenges that they're having, or, you know, things they want to talk about, but really with their own inner intuition and that voice. And it's just so, like, for me, the greatest gift of developing intuition has been, like, if I go through something challenging, I am so there for myself, like, because of that voice and because of that connection. So I feel like I can get through anything because I have that voice. So it gives me resiliency, it gives me unconditional love, it gives me, you know, the guidance and connection to oneness, connection to just feeling like everything is connected, which is just a wonderful feeling that people often are seeking, right? So
the oneness, just the connection with the oneness.
Yeah, and the thing, too, to mention is that in the beginning it helps to have an intentional altered state, and I want to be really clear that that does not mean, so plant medicine has become big. Obviously, that is a way that some people do it. You know, I just go out in nature as already being in a natural rhythm and space, or being with animals, which helps me kind of get into an altered state because the animals feel like they're in an altered state to me. So I just match that and go there. That's what helps me the most. But it's not necessarily you have to take something or do something to create an altered state. You can move. I will literally be on email and move in and out of altered states. Like, I will feel pulsing and vibrational energies come over me that just feel like bliss and peace as I'm working at my desk. And it's happened for years now because I cultivate it so much. And like from showering is another one. Like I always tell people, being around water, that even just being in certain places can be an altered state. We don't necessarily have to like work for it or like be super intentional about it. And as we grow intuition, we also come in and out of these spaces all the time. Like, so for me, I don't need to go meditate, right? I just get information all the time because I'm living it and I'm committed to it. And that's another piece of being committed to it. So, and we can have breaks with our intuition and then go out of commitment to it. And that's okay too. That happened to me last year where I just shut down intuition for a little bit because I had a hard time with it. And then I was able over time to come back to it. So sorry, you were going to share something.
No, I was just going to say, when you were saying go in and out, you know, we do that on a natural daily basis, all of us. We go from beta to alpha brainwaves constantly, all day long. And, you know, if you're busy standing at the sink and you're doing dishes, your mind kind of wanders. That's the altered state from, here I am, I'm washing the dishes and I've got to get, you know, the Brillo pad and get this, you know, that's the beta state. The altered state is where you're still doing what you're doing, but you are now in another place. And you may have, it happened to me, I can remember this many times, you're driving and your mind starts to wander and all of a sudden you look at the odometer and you're like, oh my God, where did those last 10 miles go? I'm not even sure. You're still driving, you're still paying attention to the road and so on. But what's happening is your consciousness is an altered place. That's what we're talking about here. So you're right. You don't have to take any kind of, you know, any medicine, drugs, anything to get there. It's just a matter of, it happens normally, regularly every day, but we're talking about a conscious effort to develop that altered state so that you can get in touch with your intuition more quickly.
So remind everyone again, what is the name of that altered state? Like, what's the first brainwave again that you go into?
Alpha. We start with
alpha.
Beta. That's our consciousness. But alpha is the one we go down. And then theta is where you're, you know, a little bit more. Theta is what happens when you're driving and you don't know where the last 10 miles went. You've really gone as far as theta. But alpha is basically just if you take a deep breath and it just slows you down from where you're at. Then your brain waves have slowed down. It's a matter of slowing the vibrations. That's all it is. They each have different numbers, you know, from a scientific point of view where they are. So that's all it is.
Well, I love it. And the horses will often come up and ask people to breathe with them and breathe next to them as ways of reminding us to shift into those spaces. And I certainly love doing that work with them. It helps me the most. And we definitely don't recommend you start practicing intuition while driving, so to speak. But
exactly. That's not part of the practice.
Well, the other thing that I really should mention that came in when we were preparing for this is that truly, for me, my intuition is strongest when I'm a well-oiled human body, like human being. And so, well-rested, better intuition. Watered, literally hydrated, fed, and good foods. The more I've cleaned up my food, there's certain foods I just won't eat because I like having the clean channel and the clarity. And I can just tell that certain foods or drinks will actually change or lower my vibration, and I don't pop in and out of these states because of that. So I think it's really important too, as we start to consider this, to clean things up energetically and physically, and to feel like the self-care is actually a precursor, I think, to strong intuition. That's something that came in that wanted to be shared here today. Okay, so we are moving right along. We're going to go over 30 minutes today because there's so much information we want to give you guys.
There are.
How also, we talked a little bit about this, but how do we learn to trust it and feel more confident besides just the feedback? Do you have other ideas on that?
Well, again, I use the word feedback, but it doesn't have to necessarily be with a partner or another person. But if you're, just play with it. When you play with your intuition, that's really one of the keys to making this work so easily. And one of the things you can do if you watch game shows, you watch Jeopardy or, Wheel of Fortune or something, if you watch a game show, predict what the answer will be before the answer is set. Immediately you'll know whether you're right or wrong. Predict if the phone rings who you think it might be, and just play those games so that eventually you'll realize, oh, wow, 4 out of 5 times I got that right answer, and then you begin to actually then value what you're getting. So I use the word test yourself, and you already mentioned psychometry, holding something and seeing what you get from that. And if it's something that, a person that you're talking about, you already have that piece in front of you, they can tell you whether you're right or wrong. Because all you're doing is you're getting impressions from them. Because remember, we're all connected in one way or another. We're all connected. So.
Well, and we're connected to all that is and all the information. That's what the Akashic records are, where you're able to access past lives and what's been said and all of that. So, yeah, and also, I think it's important to have, one thing I didn't even think to mention until this second is it's good to have permission if you're going to be tapping into someone else's energy field. I always ask the animals if I can talk to them. I always have their parents' permission to be able to talk to them because, I remember once I was hiking with a friend who's very intuitive and one of my mentors, and all of a sudden I could feel her reading my energy. And I just turned to her and I said, stop reading my energy. She's like, you're right, I should have asked. I said, if you want to know what's going on with me, I'll tell you. But you don't need to be in my field like that. And so I think it's important, too, that, that we do ask for permission. We have respect around intuition, especially if we're going to be going into tapping into someone else's energy or, trying to figure out what's going on, and or that we remote viewing is a whole nother one. There's so many layers of intuition. There's still so many superpowers that I myself have yet to fully grasp because I am in the 3D world so much as a business owner but the whole 5D space, where the horses and the animals really are in my mind, they're riding between the worlds of 3D and 5D. So they're able to go into altered states all the time. And I always call it they're just meditating all the time because it is the easiest way to describe it. But ultimately, they can help us travel between these worlds faster, too, when we spend time with them and we commit to just doing nothing with them. We're not going to get it if we're always I've got to ride and I've got to do X or Y and have an agenda. But if we can just sit and be with animals, we can get this actually really fast. I know the number one thing that's grown my intuition is being with animals, 100%, which is why I want it for others. But you mentioned the games, and I do love it. I call it intuition games. We did that actually as part of one of the classes in the certification program, is playing intuition games. And it's okay to get things wrong at first or to not know. Like, I gave people the exercise of, like, I was thinking of looking to see if it was something, and no one necessarily got the exact place because it was this really specific random place, but they got the elements of, like, oh, I'm seeing the rocks there, and I'm seeing, you know, or I'm feeling this exotic energy. And, like, so it was really neat that they got elements of it. And, yeah, and then, you know, there's a lot of, in my opinion, just setting your intention. My intention is to connect with my intuition. My intention is to trust. Part of the reason I trust so much with the animal communication is because I'm guided by love. Like, I'm in my heart space when I talk to animals, which is just, I love you. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. It's not about getting it right. I do always set the intention to receive accurately, but it's really about allowing myself to get fully out of the way so that I'm just in this intuitive space. And the love is really my entry point. It was when my gifts turned on with animal communication, it was through just this huge expansion of love and heart space. And you studied heart math a decent amount because that's also a huge piece, right? To be able to pull in more information.
Absolutely. Yep.
What
Definitely.
would you say is your biggest takeaway from all of that?
From the heart math program?
Yeah, and being able to grow knowing through that space. Because you did your PhD on the heart.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why I think it is critical, you know, because you mentioned, I think the last time, that having 3 brains, but we so often rely on, as adults, we rely on our left brain, the left side of our hemisphere. And children, you know, up until the age of 4, most of them are in the in the delta state. And then, you know, up till the time about 7, they're still in the theta brainwaves, predominantly, not always, but predominantly. And then as they get older, between the ages of roughly 7 and 14, they begin to move more into the alpha state. And those are the creative years that, you know, that's where creativity is really most prominent. But what happens as we get older, we really jump in. We get put down for our intuitive hits, and so we start, or we don't use our right brain as much, and so we are really focusing more on the left as adults. And when you go into your heart, that's definitely connected with your right side of your brain. So that's where, you know, we're able to balance that out. If you can, you know, go with the gut feeling in your third brain, go with your heart intuition, and use your right brain more often, I think you'd be in great shape for not for developing, but for practicing your intuition. You know, that's really where it has to come from.
Yeah, and one other thing we did, like in our master's program, is we wrote with our non-dominant hand, which is really physically somewhat challenging, but that actually can access the inner child or younger versions of ourselves, or even the intuition, because it's not, you know, we have so many neural pathways about doing things a certain way, and we are in a culture of such a heady society where we value the brain so much, the head brain. And what I love is that we're, as a society, starting and going to more so value the heart brain, the gut brain, the fully embodied. And what I love is that there's so many ways to get there. Like, I was presenting last night, and there was someone who was a somatic practitioner, and it was just like, hey, like, if you start to get angry, can you visualize your body melting and oozing honey? And I'm like, oh, it is so cool, and it can shift so fast, right? So there is a little bit of, like, fake it till you make it. I am a huge fan of practicing and really starting to form confidence before obviously ever doing this as a practitioner. There's lots of different trainings and ways to develop intuition. There's lots of different levels and practices. Like, I can't see or read auras because I have some of my clairvoyant stuff shut down. And that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. But I find it fascinating when people can, like, see colors around people. I'm like, how cool. Like, and then I had an intention to actually see colors more, and now I see them more. I have to close my eyes. I don't see them with them open, but I just got inspired by that. I'm like, okay, my intention's for that. So you can just set an intention too. My intention's to hear my guidance more and then listen. My intention's to hear the animals more and then listen. And that listening is that open, receptive state. I find sometimes that if we are not great receivers, intuition can be a harder practice. So we get to really work on surrendering, letting go, receiving, and then it gets better and better. Mm-hmm. Right? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. One of the things, real quick, I just wanted, when you were talking about not seeing the auras, one of the techniques that I was given a training in or an experience when you're in nature, look at the outlines of the trees. You will begin to see the auras. It's pretty amazing.
And also squinting your eyes too.
Yeah, that helps too. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that the body needs to break its patternings, right? Which is, like for me, showering is a big one because it just breaks stuff really quickly. Washing hands, washing a face, putting my feet in water, like those can just break, putting my bare feet on grass. Like it breaks that general go, left brain, patterning that we kind of have. So, yeah. I love it. Well, I hope I feel like we're giving a bunch of good tools and activities and ways that you can start to just play with this and go where you're drawn. You might be drawn to rocks and crystals. You might be drawn to, working with your intuition right before, right after the sleep state. That's another great place to play with it and practice. I use elements, clearly, water, earth, animals, not use, but like I partner with those elements to understand more of getting in touch with my higher self, my higher senses. Okay, so kind of, is there anything else, because I have like one closing question, but is there anything else you want to share that we haven't yet shared? There's so much in this handout. It's like 9 pages, and I just love it. But you talk about how kids are pretty open and intuitive. I say the same about animals. They're just so, there's no shoulds, and there's nothing that got shut down, like as stuff does, right, when we're so tapped in, because people in the past have been scared. They're scared of intuition, people in the past, right? Like, I worked in corporate America, and it was recently, in the last few years, it was actively shut down because they were scared of the power that I would know stuff without them having shared it because I'm just tapped in. And so, like, it's okay to have the fear and do it anyways, and to feel the fear and do it anyways. It's okay if someone else is not okay with your intuition. There are people that are, right? Find your tribe, find your group, find your people. The Metaphysical Center of New Jersey is super woo and also very practical, so that might be a tribe for you. Certainly, I love all of it, so anyone can come talk to me about it. It's important, right, to have community when you start to play with these things, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
It's part of the connection that we have. So.
Yeah, well, it feels good to feel validated and confirmed, right, in so many of these ways. And then the confidence can grow and the trust can grow. And I'm a huge fan of staying really grateful, especially when we are hearing or being with our guides in particular. And there's different guides that we can feel drawn to. And like, we can have the animal guides. We can have the archangel guides. We can have the ascended masters as guides. We can have
your ancestors.
Yeah, exactly. Past loved ones or ancestors, right? There's a lot of different pieces here. And the thing that I've always loved in because I've done like 5 or 6 animal communication trainings at this point, and I'm different practitioners and different intuition trainings as well. I've worked with mediums myself. I've practiced mediumship myself, like all these different pieces that are intuitive. Like, it's really good to just share what you're getting, even if you don't understand it, even if it doesn't make sense to you. And I can't tell you how many times in animal communication sessions where I've said something and I'm like, I don't know I'm getting this. I don't know what this means, but I'm going to share it with you. and I'm willing to share it. And then what happens is usually, even if it doesn't land right away, 2 days later, someone's like, you're never going to believe what just happened. And it's so cool. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, yeah, I did see that coming. Or, oh, that did manifest. And, oh, that's, or, you know, someone walks into the barn and they're like, oh, that thing you mentioned is right there. And I hadn't noticed it. And the other thing we can do, too, with our intuition, especially after someone's passed, is ask for signs. Right? And that's another way to grow intuition is to, now we could do a whole class, which maybe we will, on signs and signals and clues, and, you know, certainly one of your best friends wrote a book on that. So maybe we bring her on at some point. But ultimately, those can also get confusing at times. But at first, even just picking one sign can help you feel connected to your intuition too. Like, intuition, send me this one sign. And then that, you grow that, right? And that's a nice way to connect too. So clearly I'm passionate and can talk about this forever. So let's wrap it up here. Good. Why is it important that we do hire intuitives sometimes and work with them? Because the Metaphysical Center of New Jersey has done a yearly fair with psychics, and they're booked. Like, you've like 10 psychics and they're booked all day for 2 days. It's incredible. Or you guys have been doing virtual ones. You just did one a couple months ago I was part of, and I actually did a session with someone myself and then referred, does astrocartography, referred, you know, a few people to him. So why is it important to work? I have my own Akashic Records reader who I work with. Lately it's been frequently. So why is it important, would you say, to hire intuitives and work with them sometimes?
Well, I think, you know, like any professional, somebody who does something, you know, if I'm doing it, say, for example, I'm a beginner. I am just exploring. So I'm not as, I can't count on my response being as accurate but when you go to a professional, if you want to go to a medical intuitive, you're going to get a very different type of a reading than if you go to me or somebody else and say, well, what do you think I have? It's a whole different, you're really talking a professional level. There's the skill that they have honed, and they use it in their lives all the time. So I think connecting with a professional psychic is a good thing. As long as you're aware that you're using somebody who is, we say we vet everybody in the Metaphysical Center. Any psychic that we have, they have been vetted so that we know that they're accurate, and there are some people we haven't used because their accuracy isn't that good, whereas the ones we recommend, and we have a number of them, I think we have a dozen of them up on the website right now that we recommend because they've all been vetted. And you don't want to just go get, the gypsy reader down at the corner that will want you to come back 10 times, you know?
I have done that, and they have said the craziest stuff to me that is not true, and it's stuck with me for years. So that's the shadow dark side of this space that we do, you can't just go to anyone. You really want a referral, a recommendation, or you want to go to an organization that's vetted. I've had intuitives tell me my accuracy is at 95% or above. The animal communication, I like to think it's even higher. But ultimately, it really is important. And know that sometimes people do have off days, like the best intuitives will say to you, you still need to run it by your own intuition as well. And I love when people are like, oh, thanks, it's really validating what I was already thinking or feeling. And I'm like, great, right? And it's not becoming dependent on any of this or any of these people, because really we have all these gifts inside, literally all of them. It's just a matter of sometimes we're a little too emotionally connected to something that we ourselves can't see it or feel it or hear it, that we need help and support. And sometimes just getting the information. Yeah, and sometimes just getting the information can validate and make you feel better, and sometimes also just hearing the information can change it. Like for me with the Akashics, just hearing some of the information changed the actual reality of it so that I could have more compassion, I could let go. And so that's also the power of doing it too. And for intuitives to also really know their lane and what's good. I refer out for lost animals. It's not something I want to do. I don't even know if I'm good at it. I've never played with it, right? But it's like ultimately, I think, it's really important to vet, do your homework, get referrals, all that good stuff. So, yeah, feel free to reach out to my mom, Peggy Neligan, for the Metaphysical Center of New Jersey. If you are interested in more, this handbook will be up there for free to download in the near future. And the psychic fairs come up frequently, so you can get on their list.
We've got another one that's we're planning for the end of September. So
great.
We'll get some information out on that. Yeah.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.